Yo, what is up YouTube? Back with my weekly Steelers prediction video, and I've already made a video on this exact game, but I feel like I have to do it again because different weeks, different outcomes, obviously different players in the lineup, and all that matters. This week's video is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Tennessee Titans, a 5-0 versus 5-0 team. This is definitely a game that I was looking forward to in the offseason because I thought both of these teams were going to be really good. I was hoping this game would be on Sunday Night Football, but at least it's prime time. Honestly, this is going to be a very nice game. Can't wait to watch it. So we look at both of these teams. They're both in first place and they're both undefeated. We got to look at which team is better and why, because this game is in Tennessee, and that could ultimately be the factor that wins the game. So first, I want to point out some key injuries on both sides of the field. Looking at the Tennessee Titans first, Jonnu Smith, their lead receiver, obviously is a tight end, but he has the most receiving yards on that team. He's questionable in this game. That could be a big loss if he does not play. Also, one of the biggest losses of the year, Taylor Lewan, injury reserve. He is one of the best tackles in the NFL, probably is the best, and that is a big loss for the Titans offensive line. I thought those were pretty much the key injuries on both of those teams, but we also have to look at the Steelers, who, Deontay Johnson, he didn't play. He's probably going to play in this game. Marquise Pouncey, he was questionable return. I think he'll play. David DeCastro was out last week. Good replacement with Kevin Dotson, but he's probably going to play. And the biggest loss of the year for the Steelers, Devin Bush, is on injury reserve. He's out for the year. He is a talented player. He made that middle linebacker position look incredible. And that's definitely one of the biggest losses for this team so far. Besides those injuries, nothing really that impactful, but still, Devin Bush's huge injury, Taylor Lewan is a huge injury. Jonnu Smith questionable to play. That could be a huge factor also. Before I talk about the teams specifically, I want to talk about their 5-0 record and how they're 5-0. So I'm going to start with the Steelers, who have, they've won every game pretty comfortably except for one, which was the Broncos game week 2. That was the only game that they've played where I honestly didn't think they were going to win. But they ended up winning at the end of the game. Good job on the defense there. But we look at the Giants week 1. They won the game by 2 possessions. They played the Broncos week 2. They almost lost that. That was a 5-point game. Week 3, they beat the Texans by 7 points, but they also had the ball on the Texans 10 or 5-yard line with 2 minutes left in the game, and they just kneeled. So that was definitely, in my opinion, a 2-possession game. Really wasn't anything too close. And in week 5, they beat the Eagles by 2 possessions. That was, a close one at times, but they ultimately had a comfortable lead at the end. And then the best win of the year for the Steelers against the Browns, week 6, a 38-7 win. That game was looking like a shutout from the first quarter. So out of the 5 games the Steelers have played, 4 of them were comfortable wins. Nothing really too close. I like to point this out because looking at the Tennessee Titans, a lot of their games were very, very close, and they could have lost all of them except for one. The best win of the Titans' year so far is against the Buffalo Bills. A very impressive win. They won 16-42 at home. Definitely did not see that coming, but the Titans definitely proved a lot of teams that they were contenders this year after that Buffalo disastrous win. So that game was the best game they played. Easily a comfortable lead the whole time. They played the Broncos week 1. Honestly, they should have won that game by a lot more because, the kicker missed a lot of field goals. But they won that game by 2 points. Honestly, it was a comfortable lead for the Titans. They played better, whatever. But we look at week 2 at home against the Jaguars. They almost lost that game. The Jaguars had the ball with a game-winning drive and then threw a pick. That game could have been a loss. They also played the Vikings week 3, and they almost lost that game too. They were down by maybe a touchdown with one last drive, and the Titans clutched up and won that game by 1 point. They easily could have lost that Vikings game. Week 5, they destroyed the Bills, like I said, and Week 6, they almost choked the game to the Texans. It was a very close one, very questionable call by the Texans to go for 2 points. Honestly, they wanted to win it, but the Titans easily could have lost that game. They ultimately ended up clutching up with Derrick Henry. So this just shows that the Titans have been in a lot of close games, especially at home. If we compare this to the Steelers, they've been in 4 comfortable games out of 5, and it just shows that the Steelers have been a more confident team, and ultimately, that's because the Steelers have a better defense, and that is my first point. The Steelers have the best defense. I think it's ranked number 1 in the NFL. Honestly, I didn't think their defense was going to play good against the Browns, but they proved me wrong. Minkah Fitzpatrick had a nice day. The whole defense had a nice day. Honestly, there was nothing for the Browns. They couldn't do anything that entire time. The rushing defense, which I said was the most important thing about that game, it clutched up. Kareem Hunt was basically shut down. And if the rushing defense worked, I thought Baker was just going to throw it. But the Steelers secondary shocked me. They played very good. That pick 6 at the start of the game basically just gave the defense momentum for the rest of the game. So the secondary played lights out, only gave up 1 touchdown to the Browns. I compare this to the Titans defense, and it's not even comparable at all. The Titans have a pretty bad defense. It played good against the Bills, I'll give them that, but they gave up 36 points to the Texans last week. They gave up 30 points to the Vikings, 30 points to the Jaguars. Their secondary, their defensive line is not comparable to the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So straight up, I'm going to say the Steelers have the better defense, obviously. I think they have one of the best, and I think they do have the best defense in the NFL. It's currently ranked number 1 in the league. But on the other side of the ball, we have the offenses. Both offenses looking really good. I think the Tennessee Titans offense is one of the best in the NFL because of Derrick Henry, the monster himself. The dude ran for over 200 rushing yards against the Texans defense. That is just incredible to say by itself. But the passing game is good for the Titans too. A.J. Brown's back. He's healthy. He's playing good, along with Humphries. Corey Davis was injured. Jonnu Smith's playing good. This offense is playing decently well. They've been putting up a lot of great numbers. Week 1 is the outlier, but week 2 they put up 33, week 3, 31, week 5, 42 points, and week 6, 42 points once again. So this offense is scoring high. But we look at the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, who many people thought were going to be horrible. They put 26 up weeks 1 and 2, 28 week 3, 38 week 5, and 38 week 6. So both of these offenses are playing very good. And I honestly say that because both of these teams are able to run the ball. And running the ball leads teams to win games. That's why the Chiefs destroyed the Bills. They just ran the ball over them. Especially when the Titans have the best running back in the NFL and many other teams can't even run the ball. It just adds another dimension to the offense that a lot of teams want to have, but only a couple teams truly do. Tennessee Titans are one of those teams, and I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are also. James Conner's playing good, 100 rushing yards against the Cleveland Browns. Both of these rushing offenses are good. And along with that, you need a good passing offense, which both of these teams obviously have. The Titans already talked about how good that offense is, their passing offense. But we'll look at the Steelers. Chase Claypool, the number 1 receiver looking like. This dude's an absolute monster. It just adds the biggest threat that no one saw coming. Because Juju, James Washington, Deontay Johnson, and Eric Ebron are all targets. And that's the scary part about the Steelers. I'm going to say I don't know who's better on offense. I'd say both of them are pretty good. Obviously, the Titans are the better rushing offense. They're the best in the league, in my opinion. Better than the Browns, of course. And then I think the Steelers have a better passing offense. But honestly, I can't tell at this point in time. So both of these offenses basically equivalent. I think this game is going to be a defensive effort. Whichever team plays better on defense is going to win. And you already know, I think the Steelers have the best defense in the NFL. And I think the Titans defense is horrendous. One thing that I've said many, many times in many videos is the only way you'll beat the Titans if you stop Derrick Henry. And no one has done that yet. No one has stopped Derrick Henry. But, Derrick Henry is going against the best defensive line in the NFL. And that is the key factor of the game. I think the Steelers are going to score well on offense. But ultimately, if Derrick Henry is stopped, this game is easily going to fall in the hands of the Steelers. But if Derrick Henry goes off, which I honestly think he'll get around 100 rushing yards, we'll see, maybe less. But if he goes off, the Titans are really true contenders to win this game. But of course, the question is, which team is going to win that matchup, Derrick Henry or the Steelers' defensive line? Comment down below who you think is going to win that matchup right now before I reveal who I think is going to perform better. Honestly, let me tell you right now, the Steelers' defensive line's lights out. It played extremely well against the previous number 1 ranked rushing offense, the Cleveland Browns. Do you think it's going to happen again? Do I think it's going to happen again? Honestly, give me the big yes. I think the Steelers' defensive line is going to play extremely well against Derrick Henry, especially because Taylor Lewan is on injury reserve. That is a big loss for the Titans' offensive line. The Steelers could easily abuse that. They've lost Devin Bush, but he's not really, that big of a factor in the defensive line. He's still a big factor. But I think the Steelers are going to outperform Derrick Henry in this game and ultimately end up winning. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Adios.